They thought our compound would remain silent forever. For 9 years, no child's cry was heard, only whispers that cut deeper than a blade. Some said we were cursed. Others avoided our home as if we carried a plague. But the day the rain fell and a knock came at our gate, everything changed. The gate of stories is open. To walk through, subscribe to Fruition Wonders. Leave your footprint with a like and invite others by sharing the path. I still remember the day my mother's words pierced me like a spear. Henry, a man without a child, is like a farm without seeds. How will your name sprout when you are gone? That was the day I realized my life with my wife Anne would never be the same again. When I married Anne, my heart beat with pride. She was not just beautiful, she was also kind. The kind of woman who greeted even strangers with respect. Our wedding was the talk of Umuokpara village. The elders sang, women danced, and my father slaughtered 2 goats. People whispered that we would raise strong children, sons who would till the land, and daughters who would marry well. Anne's smile that day was like the morning sun. It made me believe all would be well. But life, I later learned, does not always follow the path the drumbeat promises. The first year after marriage, we laughed as couples do. Each time Anne missed her period, our hearts leaped with excitement. But after many false hopes, nothing came. The second year, the whispers began. Aunties came with advice. Drink this herb, lie this way, go to this healer. Some said it was my fault. Others said it was hers. We tried all the concoctions. Bitter roots, pungent soups, even the smoke of burnt leaves inhaled at midnight. Anne would sometimes cry, but wipe her tears before I saw them. Yet I always knew. A proverb says, the eyes may lie, but the pillow never does. By the 4th year, our joy had turned to quiet prayers. Children from neighbors filled the air with their laughter, and our compound remained silent like a deserted river. Whenever we attended family meetings, I saw the way people looked at Anne. Once, an elder's wife asked her openly, "So, when will we hear the cry of a child from your hut, or will the walls grow cobwebs forever?" Anne forced a smile, but that night she wept in my arms. My own heart was heavy. I felt like a tree standing tall, but with hollow roots. Relatives started pressing me. "Henry, a man must plant where the soil is fertile. Take another wife. Do not waste your youth on barren land." My own mother, though loving, began to suggest the same. "Son, even the cock that crows without hens is useless. Bring another woman. Let us see if the fault is in your seed or her womb." Each word was like a thorn in my flesh, for I loved Anne. Leaving her was not in my heart. But every man fears being called the father of none. Nights became heavy. Anne sometimes avoided my eyes, afraid of the disappointment she thought I carried. She prayed more, fasted more. I followed her sometimes. Other times I stayed behind, staring at the ceiling, asking God, when will all these end? In the silence of those nights, I heard my own doubts screaming louder than the crickets outside. One morning, a traveling doctor from the city came to our village. He set up a small clinic under a cashew tree. Out of curiosity, Anne and I went for a checkup. The doctor listened patiently, then said, "It may not be as people think. Sometimes it is not about barrenness, but about timing, stress, or even health of both partners. Come to the city for proper tests." It was the first time someone spoke without judgment, without calling my wife a stone, or me a dried seed. That night, I held her hand and whispered, My love, even if the world mocks us, let us not mock ourselves. We will fight together. Her tears that night were not of sorrow, but of relief. Still, the road ahead was long. Proverb says, "The journey of 1,000 miles does not start on a straight path. It starts with stumbling." And stumble we did, again and again, until our faith was tested like gold in fire. We saved for months to travel to the city hospital. I sold part of my young harvest, and Anne used her weaving skills to make wrappers for women in the market. When we finally entered the hospital, I felt like a villager lost in a strange kingdom. White walls, people rushing in uniforms, machines beeping. The doctor ran tests for both of us. For the first time, it was not just Anne. Being examined it was me too. I remember the fear that gripped me when they took my blood. What if the problem was me? After weeks, the results came. The doctor looked at us carefully and said, "You both are healthy, but conception may take longer. You must be patient, reduce stress, and stop listening to those who blame only the woman." His words were like water to a thirsty traveler. But patience, I would learn, is the hardest seed to plant. Back in the village, hope lit our faces. But villagers are not doctors. They continued their whispers. 9 years, and still no child? Maybe her hands are not clean. Maybe she carries a hidden fault. Some even avoided eating in our home, as if our emptiness could spread to them. Anne cried often. I became more silent, a man carrying a gourd of shame on his head. A proverb says, "The world does not pity a man who carries an empty basket. It only laughs when the wind blows it away." One evening, my uncle Kalu, a man who loved to boast of his 7 children, came to my compound. He did not greet warmly. His eyes were sharp. "Henry, enough of this nonsense. You are wasting your youth. Marry another wife. My cousin's daughter is waiting. She will give you strong sons." Anne sat there, silent, tears forming in her eyes. My heart burned. "Uncle," I said firmly, "a man who abandons his farm because weeds grow is a fool. Should I throw away the woman who has stood by me because children have delayed? Is that what you call wisdom?" He hissed and left, but I knew I had made an enemy. From that day, family gatherings became battlegrounds. At night, when the world was silent, our true war began. Anne sometimes pushed me away in bed, whispering, "Why not take another wife? Why should I tie down your future?" Each time, I pulled her close and said, "You are my future. Even if the tree bears no fruit, its shade can still save a traveler from the sun." But deep inside, I also battled fear. What if my love was not enough? What if, one day, even my heart grew tired? The worst thorn came not from strangers, but from my blood. My younger brother, Chike, who once respected me, began to insult me openly. "Henry, of what use are you as the eldest when you have no child to carry your name? I, with only 2 children, am already greater than you." His words cut deeper than any blade. In Igbo land, the eldest son is the pillar of the family. But without children, I was seen as a hollow pillar, one push away from falling. Anne tried to console me, but I withdrew into silence. The shame was too heavy. One Sunday, a tale was shared about Hannah, the woman who prayed for a child. The wisdom was clear. Delay is not denial, for when one door is shut, another greater door is being carved. Anne gripped my hand tightly. I saw in her eyes a flame I thought was dying. That day, we decided to start praying every midnight, kneeling together, speaking our pain out loud. We prayed, like people wrestling with the heavens. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled and lightning cracked the sky, we heard a knock at our gate. Opening it, we found a baby, abandoned, wrapped in rags, crying. Anne gasped, tears streaming down her face. We lifted the baby inside, warmed him, and fed him. The next morning, we took him to the village square, asking who had abandoned him. No one claimed the child. Some said it was a curse. Others said it was a blessing. We decided to keep him. For the first time in many years, the sound of a baby's cry filled our compound. But blessings often come with their own shadows. People began to say, if they cannot give birth, they now steal children. Even my mother asked suspiciously, Henry, are you sure this child is not from another woman you secretly kept? I realized then that sometimes even joy comes wrapped in thorns. A proverb says, the river that saves you from thirst can also drown you if you are careless. And truly, this child would test not just our love, but the strength of our souls. At first, people came to see the baby out of curiosity. Some women clicked their tongues and said, blessings do not fall in strange baskets. Others mocked. They could not plant a seed, so they picked a fallen fruit. Every comment was like a pebble thrown into our fragile joy. But each time I watched Anne cradle that child, her face glowing, I knew we had done the right thing. We named him Nathaniel, Gift of God. Only a few close friends stood with us. Others kept their distance, murmuring that such a beginning was nothing to rejoice over, and saying, how can one celebrate what was found in the bush? But my heart told me that this child was not an accident. For the first time in many years, our compound was filled with laughter. A proverb says, no matter how late the moon rises, it will still light the night. But my own mother, stubborn as a goat, still did not accept him. She often said, Henry, a child without roots will never know his true tree. Do not waste your love. Her words pierced me, but Anne and I ignored them. Each night we prayed, holding Nathaniel close, asking God to let our joy remain. When Nathaniel was 3 years old, sickness struck him. His body burned with fever, and his small chest heaved heavily. We rushed him to the hospital in town. For 3 nights, I watched helplessly as doctors struggled. Anne knelt by his bed crying, God, do not allow the only light we have to be taken away by the devil. I feared that if we lost this child, we would also lose ourselves. But on the 4th morning, Nathaniel opened his eyes, weak but alive. The doctor smiled and said, this boy is strong. He will live. Anne hugged me, whispering, if God could bring him back from the edge, then he is not done with us. 2 years later, when Nathaniel turned 5, something happened that shook our lives. Anne fell sick often, weakness, nausea, and dizziness. We thought it was malaria. We went to the hospital. The nurse returned with a paper, smiling. She said, congratulations, you are pregnant. At first, I thought I had misheard. Pregnant? After 15 years of marriage? Anne burst into tears. I fell to my knees right there in the hospital corridor. People stared, but I did not care. A proverb says, the drum that refuses to sound in the afternoon may surprise the dancers at night. 9 months later, after much prayer and trembling, Anne gave birth to a baby girl. Her cry was strong, like a trumpet announcing victory. We named her Miracle, a living testimony of wonders. That day, my mother, who once doubted us, carried the baby with tears in her eyes. Even my brother Chiki, who mocked me, bowed his head in shame. The same villagers who once ridiculed us now came with gifts, dancing, saying, "Truly, God is not mocked." With Nathaniel playing in the yard and Miracle nursing in Anne's arms, I often sat under the mango tree, reflecting. I realized that children are not just born from wombs. Some are born from compassion, love, and sacrifice. If we had rejected Nathaniel, our hearts would have hardened, and maybe our miracle would never have come. A proverb says, "The hand that gives love to another child opens the door for its own." Now, as I put these words down, many seasons have passed. Nathaniel has grown into a fine young man, steady, respectful, and strong. Miracle shines with laughter and light, her spirit as radiant as the morning sun. Today, people no longer whisper behind my back. They call me Nathaniel and Miracle's father. The name once mocked is now carried with honor. But I tell couples still waiting, do not let the world's laughter bury your hope. Even if the seed delays, keep watering the soil. Sometimes God writes his story with a slow pen, but his ink never dries. And so, my story stands as a reminder that love is tested most when the basket is empty. Patience is a medicine bitter to swallow, but sweet in result. Children may delay, but joy can still find a home. A river may crawl for miles under the sand, but when it surfaces, it waters the whole land. The drum that delays its sound is only waiting for the right dance. No matter how long the night lingers, the cock will still crow at dawn. A tree that is slow to sprout often gives the sweetest shade. And finally, the sun does not forget a village just because it rose late. And truly, the sun rose on ours. Our compound once carried silence. Now it carries laughter. Such is the way of life. Delays are not denials. If this tale gave you hope, remember, the gate of stories is still open. Subscribe to Fruition Wonders. Leave your footprint with a like and invite others by sharing the path. Together, let us keep the fire of wisdom burning.